Welcome to Igniting Change, the podcast where we explore innovation, industry trends, and how tech for good is solving the world's biggest challenges. Let's get into it.
Right. Hey, Jim, thank you so much for joining us. So my first official podcast of 2025, which I'm very excited about. So Jim, do you want to introduce yourself and your organization?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Jim. I am the Deputy Director of Technology for the National Deaf Children's Society. We are the leading children's charity in the UK for supporting parents and children with their journey, through either whether that's they were born deaf at birth, or they need support in that area, and that we've been around quite a while now. So really driving forward, and our strategy goal is to reach 100% of all deaf children and make every moment count for the next good few years.
Amazing. And Jim, how on earth did you get that role? Like, what's the journey that you've been on to get the role that you're in today?
My CV is probably best described as bumpy and roughly aimed. So honestly, real truth there. I sort of I got to my early 30s and I was like, what do I actually want to do in life? Like, where do I want to be? And I kind of wrote a vague plan, which was, to be doing good things by the time I'm about 40, which actually turns out was pretty accurate. So I did all sorts, I worked in a call center. I started in the world of agile and lean management, did that for a good few years, went through into a few things, ended up in a management consultancy role, which was great. It taught me a lot, but I guess the thing about that was really like the purpose wasn't quite there towards the end for me. So essentially putting an extra stable on somebody's house, because we were making big money for the clients, big money for ourselves, and so on. And then I kind of thought there's got to be something more to this. About that time, the role came up for National Deaf Children's Society as a chapter leader of technology, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. And I just thought, you know what, that sounds really great. I'd had some involvement with them before. I knew of them as an organisation, so I thought I'll apply for that. And yeah, here we are, nearly a year later, doing some great things in tech for them.
And talk to me. You said we'll come back to that in a bit. That role,
Yeah, so it's an unusual one in that we've gone through a fairly sizable agile transformation, and we're going through that now. We're still doing that now, and it's been really great. And one of the coolest kind of things is they've sort of completely flattened the structure, like completely really flat. So we have what we would call chapters. They look after areas. So I look after the technology chapter. That's all the internal technology. We've got chapters for other areas, and rather than in the old world, the job title I gave you would sort of apply. It does externally. Internally, we don't use those. So every chapter has a chapter lead who kind of looks after it and ensures that the right great things get done. We work with what we call our platform leads who look after areas of the strategy. So have really great conversations and really align around that value to do the right things at the right time to deliver value to our end customer, which is ultimately every single deaf child in the United Kingdom and their parent and carer, really.
which is amazing. And I haven't heard of this happening at anyone that I have had conversations with recently. So, and this sounds like it's almost like hot off the press, like you're going through it now. And how long has this been bedded in? Like a year, or have you been doing this?
So yeah, it was before I started, so I can't take any credit for embedding it at all. About a year ago, they did this. They worked with another consultancy to work out, what that could look like and how they could use agile to kind of really align around value and get results sooner through the way they work. And it's a pretty brave move, and I'd say it's worked well. We've got some really great people at the right rooms having the right conversations. And what it does is it kind of flips the script a little bit. So you don't have everything having to go through lines of management to get to agreement. it just makes those conversations much more focused and dynamic. It allows the right people to make the right decisions at the right pace and just have that level of kind of like shared collaboration. So it's super cool.
And would it be fair to say it sounds like people can have more of a voice, almost like they've got more opportunity to make positive impact internally potentially? I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
I'd say that, you know, it's I'd say personally in the year I've been here, it's massively reduced down the administration around those decision making. You know, we work in quarters. We've got some really great ways of synchronizing and planning and delivery in an agile way, which have really helped us kind of get to that value sooner and then work with partners to do so.
so. Going back to your journey, Jim, so you've come from a I guess from outside of the not-for-profit space, right? And you've come into the not-for-profit space, which you know, some people describe it as very different. How have you found that journey?
Personally, I found that okay. Like I didn't work in the not-for-profit sector before, so I guess I didn't really know what it would look like. Like, so I have no way of knowing if it's better or worse than anywhere else. But what I would say to that is that I guess the world that we live in at the moment, you know, we have to be a little bit more kind of corporate in our dealings. It's probably quite similar, more than people might think than it is in terms of, you know, ultimately, you know, we are completely funded by supporters. All of our money comes from donations that we get and other things. So we have to make that money work hard, and that, you know, in the same way that a business would ensure that it's delivering profit for its shareholders, we're ensuring that we're delivering value for all of our supporters, and yeah, so it's quite similar in that respect.
That's awesome. What about the differences though? So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely curious because, to be honest, it sounds like your organization is actually pretty forward thinking, and I mean, it sounds like you're doing some amazing things, and we'll get into that in a second. But you know, sometimes in our experience, we found that not-for-profits might be slower to move. They're more risk averse, right? It takes longer to do things. Do you think that's unfair? Like, have you witnessed any of that?
I have seen that. I've worked previously to this, although I wasn't working for the not-for-profit. I have done work with them in the consultancy world, and there is an element of that. You know, there is some just don't have the resource, or maybe they're you know, or something else that's kind of holding them back a little bit. And I guess before I started, there was a fairly deliberate kind of action to really invest in the tech and the digital space to really drive that forward, and really make sure we were modernizing at a reasonable pace. And the result of that, I guess, is starting to pay off nicely. You know, the chapters that are looking after those areas are doing some great things in that area. We have to be kind of like resource clever. We have to be clever with how we're getting it done. But yeah, I'd say that I guess the big difference for me, actually, going back to that point, was there's almost no politics in internal politics at all. Like, everyone just knows why they're here and what they want to do and why they're doing it. The purpose is shared. So it's just really great coming to work every day, just doing great things with great people.
Which is like, that's what it's all about, right? And it's so lovely to hear that, because I think that's really important. And I think we don't always talk about that, but actually everyone being clear and aligned with, you know, mission, vision, values, I think you can achieve some incredible things when everyone is aligned and it's like crystal clear. Okay, right. So talk to us today about how your organization is using tech to make a difference. So like, is there a project or particular projects that you can like maybe dive into and give us a bit more information on?
Yes and no. So that I can go through. I guess that's the honest answer, right? So there's certain things that I can't that we're doing, but I'd just say that, you know, our key thing is, so from a internal perspective, because I look after the internal side of things, it's just about you know, we're really into what we would call our future workplace world, where what we're really trying to do with that is think about what does that look like in terms of where people are working? You know, we've just recently closed our head office down, and we're pushing towards becoming a remote first organization. So what does that look like? How do we stay connected when we're geographically distant? And how do we build that kind of world-class experience for everyone that comes into the organization to do great things? So heavily in, as you might imagine, into the rollout of AI, looking into what AI can do to support us and support our individuals. Externally, you know, working with those partners, working with other areas to kind of encourage where we can, like awareness of what we can do for them through modernization. And we're doing some good work in that space that I can't just go into, but exciting things that are really going to help us kind of connect, drive that awareness, drive that understanding and knowledge of what people can kind of do, and support in those areas as well.
So, oh my gosh, I've got so many questions. So, Jim, the
Mm.
first point there that you made was about being remote first. So,
Mm.
how have you found that transition?
Personally, I have been remote for, you know, a number of years, so I think for me it makes sense. So I'm based in the north of England, and we're predominantly a London-based organisation. So I guess one of the great advantages of doing that has been I've got to be able to come to work for them. I think generally, like, yeah, it's a journey that we've been going on. So I think now we are mostly there. Most individuals are doing that, and it's just learning what's different there. Like, you know, how do we make sure that we keep those connections? How do we make sure that we have the right conversations? So the right format for those conversations as well. What makes sense to still meet up in person, and what makes sense to just do online, and you know, keeping us connected through the tools that support us doing it, both in terms of actual connection through, you know, conversations like this on the video call and so on, but also like alignment. How do we align to our strategy, and what tools can we bring in to support us to do that? So some great work in the space happening right now.
Awesome. And I say I'm asking, so I think so I flip between the US and the UK, and I went from being one of those people that was like always in the office to being remote first, and it was a big challenge to get used to start with, but it's like I love it now and I see the benefits. But I think we're here at 360 Cube, we aim for that like hybrid. We're in this like hybrid place at the moment where we've got people coming into the UK office, but yet they've got the freedom and flexibility to be able to work from home as well. So it's
Hmm.
just it's very topical, and I think there's probably a lot of people
Yeah.
listening today that maybe are, you know, maybe they're hybrid, maybe they're trying to get more people back in the office, but actually there are a lot of, well, certainly a lot more benefits now to that hybrid or remote first. So it's a very interesting and topical
Yeah.
thing for me right now.
Yeah.
um
Certainly.
the second point you made about like AI, so like everyone is talking about AI at the moment, but
Yeah.
talk to me about like what you're doing. Is it an internal, are you looking at how you utilize it internally first before you look at how you utilize it to engage with supporters?
I think it's broader than that really. So there's a lot of work. I guess the thing with AI is everything's AI these days, and I guess there's a reality check as to what actually is, right? So I think what we're really doing at the moment is starting with the person, starting with the use case. You know, if we do something in this space, does it help us get to that insight sooner? Does it help us share that knowledge across the organization? So some amazing work happening, and I'm not taking credit for any of this because there's lots of colleagues involved in this. It's definitely more than one person doing it. But yeah, basically, does it help us get information sooner? Does it help us to understand our I guess our customer a little bit more? Like, you know, who's looking for us and how are they trying to get this information? Where are we reaching? Where are we not? Where are we having that impact? Where aren't we? And just using that data to kind of drive what we might do next in those areas. There's some exciting stuff in it. Whatever we talk about today, it's moving at such a fast pace that realistically, in 3 months' time, it'll be out of date already.
Yeah,
It's just amazing how fast it's moving with that.
which is awesome, but like how do you manage that internally? So, you know, and I struggle sometimes. I feel overwhelmed by like all of the changes, all the new things that you can be doing. But what I have found super helpful here at Cube is we have an internal Slack channel where people are sharing like what they've used it for, how they've used it, like maybe some training around prompts for particular tools and what have you. I found that quite helpful. But how is it happening internally your end? Like, is everyone using it? Is everyone talking about it? Is it small pockets of people? Like, how are people sharing like how they're using it? Because I agree, it all starts with the user, but like, how do you, I guess, nurture and train people and encourage and inspire people to be using this more?
So yeah, there's a few bits to that, isn't there, right?
Yep.
So I think one of them is around awareness, just I guess, and two things to that. One is helping people generate awareness of what's out there that they can use and that benefit and what they need to be mindful of when they are using AI. Because again, as a children's charity, we need to be ensuring that we are, we're keeping our data safe and our people safe through it. But also just awareness of what people are trying to achieve and I guess matching that up with whether AI would support them in doing that a bit quicker. In terms of the other point, really, it's about kind of thinking about like our strategy direction in that area. So not a strategy to replace our main strategy at all, but how do we enable our strategy to come to life through the use of AI, and what does that look like in terms of the practicalities? What people do we need? What should we do first? How do we prioritize the demands and the use cases? Where does it make sense to just use something off the shelf? Where do we build it? Again, lots of thought in that space that keeps me going during the week, amongst many other things.
You make it all sound very simple, Jim, but I have a feeling it's not as simple as that, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and I guess the challenge is, where is it that we, and I guess actually thinking about this, it's where is it that AI is helping us, and where is it that AI can actually be equally unhelpful and potentially a threat, and thinking about like that a little bit, so that using monitoring. So I went to a talk last year where I guess one of the comments that came up was that the pace that things are moving, AI, you kind of need to use AI to understand what's being said about you online, because you just can't get to that insight soon enough. So actually, you need to have a little bit more insight into that. How are people using AI in a dodgy way, I suppose, to try and like get into your data and cause you harm, and what do you do to prevent against that? How are we making sure that our people are okay and they're using AI responsibly, and actually equally they're we're keeping an eye on what they're sort of asking for, to make sure that if there are anything that we need to help them with, that we can do that too. So there's a lot of like, it's a lot more complicated, I guess, than just kind of AI's here, let's just use it. But I think we're making good steps, and it's probably quite, speaking to other colleagues in the charity sector, I think we're a little bit, I guess a lot of people are dipping their toes in the water, but we've kind of jumped straight in a little bit, and we've really gone for it and like pushed it forward in a responsible way, with the right policies and governance and so on. And there's been a lot of work around in that space to make sure that we're doing things safely and securely. But yeah, it's quite an exciting world.
Do you know what? It's so refreshing, because it is quite rare hearing about organizations or teams of people that are diving in, right? Because it is scary, it is moving really really fast. But I think, you've touched on a very important part, the governance and all the policies. So I remember, so as you know, Jim, you've come to one of our roundtables. We, on one of the roundtables that we had someone very openly share their AI policy. And the consensus was, this is what it is today, but in 3 to 6 months it probably will evolve and it's going to change. But as a starting point, it was a really good thing to share, and for us to all speak openly and be like, okay, cool, well, we're having a challenge around this, like, how do we do it? I think there's a lot of organizations like, where do we start? But I think just having and I say a simple policy that can almost act like the rails around the usage, and then from there it can evolve and you can grow and get better and get stronger at this stuff. But starting there is perhaps a good place,
Definitely.
which is cool. So Jim, talk to me about what you think the next big thing in tech for good might be.
I think we basically did, which is it is going to be AI. It is going to be Gen AI, right? I think that's ultimately where it is. It's probably going to be like, how do we use AI in the way to kind of like really get personal with our supporters and really get to know them more and know what they really need from us, and then use that to kind of build out those services and those products that kind of help them with it. And I guess that's probably where it starts and ends for me. Really, it's probably Gen AI and work within that area.
And had you, I don't know, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but your supporters, Jim, and your like the audience that you're going after, have you spoken with them about their thoughts on AI and how it's used, or is it like, well, I mean, I don't know, like, have you? Is that something that you would do?
I think we not necessarily in that area. I think our key thing is kind of thinking about what we do in areas. A lot of it is around the conversations. Really kind of. So I suppose to pick it apart a little bit more, I think externally, I don't know if we typically would, we're coming to our partners, we're coming to parents and children, we're talking about, I guess, much more kind of critically important things to them, such as, basic fundamentals. Are they getting what they need in terms of their, early healthcare plans, the HCPs? Are they getting the right audiology support? Are they getting the information they need? Um, and then probably what we're doing internally is thinking about how do we surface that information to them sooner and use AI to support in it. So, for example, a project we did with some of our helpline team where we kind of help them get to that information sooner on the call using AI, for example. Thinking about, again, how do we know what's been asked for us? How do we know what we don't know yet? I suppose our unknown unknowns. How do we get to know that? How do we know what people are asking that we don't know yet? And then, using AI to surface that information a bit sooner is another area of focus for us.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And you said something earlier around, and I thought it was really interesting, just thinking about, I guess it was more maybe the risks around things and things not working,
Mm,
but the fact that you give thought to that up front and you're
yeah,
coming up with like solutions or ways around things, or I think that's really quite smart. And maybe, that might be useful for anyone listening if they're thinking or doing something in the space, or they're actually actively in this space, but just to give the risks probably a little more thought and consideration. I mean, are there any tools or tips that you want to share today, Jim? And don't worry
yeah.
if you don't, but if you do, great.
I think for me, so we talked about this a little bit recently, and I kind of said I think it's ultimately the most important tool is basically the human being. So the individual themselves, it's human behaviors to start with. Got to really make sure that our people, are confident users of AI, so they know how it can help, but equally they know what to be mindful of about what information maybe not to put into a tool and things like that. Um, and then yeah, from a various, I went to an AI conference last year and Microsoft were running this, and they had a huge session around like the risk that it can also bring, but equally like things you need to think about. So having, building mindfulness around AI into your security operations center and your monitoring of your data, because our chapter in particular, we look after, I guess, our internal systems. So, we've got to be constantly mindful of, who's trying to access information for it. Hackers don't have ethics, unfortunately, and how do we? And they may be starting to use AI increasingly to start doing some of that. And how do we make sure we've got the right controls in place to act at the right pace in that area too? So I think humans, and then backed up by technology and clear process.
And I think we all need to remember ultimately the technology is not going to solve the problems per se, but it's an enabler. So it
Mm,
enables us to solve problems, but it's not
right.
the actual solution quite often. And you're right to come back to it's humans, and quite often we're trying to solve challenges that humans face. So how would a human, or that person, that individual that we're targeting, how might they approach it, and how do we best fit in with their needs, rather than just coming up with the next new shiny tech thing and just kind of shoehorning that solution in, because it's just not going to work. So, Jim, talk to me about. Oh, I can see the dread. The I guess, have you? And I don't know if this is true, but you've basically rolling out your OKRs. Is that helping you guys be able to focus more on particular areas, or is that not something that you would recommend? I don't know what your journey with OKRs has been.
I think it's been pretty good. Like again, it's something that started before I started, and I kind of came in when we're doing it. But I guess um, what that's helped us do is kind of like really align to are we focusing on the right things? So it's kind of really driven how we sort of plan and prioritize and use that. So our objectives are set against, are we delivering our strategy or not, basically, and how do we know we're delivering it? What it allows us to do is it allows each area to like be really clear on what they can do in each quarter. That's going to really drive that forward, and it gives that real clarity of direction to go forward in. It's completely new to this charity, and I think it's pretty uncommon in the charity sector. So we're pretty brave in going through that, but so far it's been a great journey, and I think we're making some really great progress towards our strategy as a result of it.
Do you know what I love? And you've done it throughout our conversation today, but you're very focused on the quarters. So in a lot of people that I've had conversations with, that it almost sometimes I find it really hard to relate, because they might have like a 5-year goal, which feels so far away, but it's really refreshing to hear you so focused on like quarterly goals and quarterly metrics. So I feel like that a new thing, or is that just something that the organization's always done?
No, it's quite new. I think they're about a year into doing that.
Okay.
So they, again, as part of what they called kind of what we called internally actually flip day. So there was a point in time where they kind of like to develop this new kind of organizational design. So thinking about like rather than quite a hierarchical design, flattening it a fair bit, but equally thinking about like switching up how they did their planning cycles. So stayed yearly, but then again breaking it into quarters and then thinking about the work in a quarterly way. Something that you see a lot in a lot of corporate firms. That's quite common, I guess. But yeah, new to the charity sector, and seems to work really well. Like it really helps us focus on getting value sooner and just really focusing on what that is in a more structured way.
I think it's brilliant, and it's definitely certainly how we're operating as well. So to hear you talk about it as well, it's quite exciting. And
Mm.
if anyone is listening, if they did want more information, or if you did want to speak to Jim, do reach out, because I'm sure you would be able to share your experience with it, Jim. Right, okay, so what's like, I guess you're doing, so you talk about generative AI, but in terms of like, and you mentioned like almost like, what, I don't know if I can call it this, like future gazing, but what is there anything else on your radar, like tech wise, or is generative AI's the like that's the space that you're very focused on right now?
So Gen AI is one of those areas. I guess it'd be surprising if not. I guess going back to the point we made about like remote first organization, it's kind of like thinking about what that looks like in terms of an experience for our people, because that our chapter kind of looks after that the most. So it's thinking about like if I'm sat at home, if we've got a co-working space, if I'm there, if I'm, we're quite good at things like, if you want to work a week on abroad, we can up to 20 days a year, we can
Oh
do that.
wow.
So, and we're fairly flexible as an organization in that regards. It's like thinking about like how do we build that world-class experience for everyone so that they can get that information as soon as they can. They feel connected. They can collaborate in a highest possible way. Just driving that future workplace forward is pretty much number one priority for me. Is making our people happier.
And rewinding and going back to
Mm.
the start of our chat, and you were like, okay, by my 40s, I want to be doing something for good. It sounds like you are definitely doing that
Yeah,
now, which is
feel that way.
awesome. But do you ever look back and think, oh, I wonder what life's like outside of not-for-profits, or are you like, no, this is the way, like, I love this space and this is something that I'm super passionate about and I want to stay in?
I think for me, like I like it so far. Like I think it's great. I think it's good to have proper genuine purpose. Like coming into work every day, it definitely is a driving factor, right? In terms of do I look elsewhere, I mean, obviously, you know, we've all got lives, so we look around at like what suits us in our lives and so on. And I think that gap maybe is shortening a little bit from what it was. So I definitely think I guess personal reflection here that I think you need to be like what I would class a kind of a corporate charity mindset more and more these days, more than you may have done previously, because ultimately, you know, the world is changing and we need to change with it. So I guess there'll come a point where they're probably quite similar in how they operate and run.
Definitely. And so obviously you'd mentioned some of the events that you've been to. Do you still go to events quite regularly, whether it's virtually or in person?
I try to do, you know, I try to, where it makes sense and where I've got the time to do it, I try to keep up, you know, and I guess it's building that network out. You know, one of the events I mentioned earlier was, you know, it's a group called Charity IT Leaders, and it's really great because what you can do is you can kind of come across those individuals from other charities and kind of share the stories. Really, that's where it kind of starts and ends. You know, what are they up to? Challenges they're facing? Can you help with that? Equally, what challenges are you facing, and maybe you can get that insight and help from them. And those communities that you can build up, they're really important, and they kind of really drive that message and awareness through. So super exciting. And we've just, on a side note rather, we've just started a pilot where we're kind of like really driving forward that community partnership within areas of England. And that's much more kind of like trying to help to get to our people who need us most sooner. And that approach is really helping drive those communities forward, drive the stories forward, and can work us towards like our next directions.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And I do think there's something to be said in the for good space. I feel like people tend to be more collaborative, helpful, almost more transparent. Like they're willing to tell you like what worked well, what didn't, why it didn't, and then like share those learnings and insights that can help people moving forwards. And I don't know, maybe I've been in this space for a long time now, and I don't know if it's unfair to say, but certainly my time in the commercial space before that, I felt people were almost like like they were very secretive about this stuff. They didn't want to share this stuff. Whereas certainly in the for good space, people are a lot more open and honest. And I find that to be incredibly helpful and inspiring.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I say, coming into work every day, and everyone's got the same purpose. There's no politics. No one's trying to outdo each other. We're just all doing great things for great people. It's really refreshing.
It sounds like the organisation's amazing. It sounds like you've got an incredible team there. Jim, thank you so much for your time. I've loved chatting with you, and I can't wait to hear more. And I would say to anyone listening, if anyone has any questions, if anyone wants to reach out, then we reach out to us here at Three Sided Cube, and we will make those introductions happen. But thank you for listening.
Thank you.